Chapter 41. Killing All the Wolves. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Cecilia's requirement to complete her quest was to clear the first of any dungeon, and now that she had cleared it, Daniel continued his hunt to complete the 10 stages of the dungeon which is known as Phoenix. The air within the dungeon of Phoenix seemed to hum with otherworldly energy as Daniel ventured deeper into its depths. The passageways twisted and turned, leading him through a labyrinth of shadows and mystery. Every step he took echoed with a sense of anticipation, for he knew that within these walls lay the potential to unlock a power unlike any he had wielded before. His flabellum, housing the enigmatic Jinn Paimon, was clutched tightly in his hand. He could feel her presence, a whisper of ancient wisdom and magic that resonated within his mind. With a focused thought, he reached out to her, their connection forming a bridge between their consciousness. "Hey, Paimon," Daniel's voice reverberated within the confines of his thoughts. He could almost sense her awakening, a shimmering essence roused from slumber. "What's the matter?" Paimon's response was akin to a gentle breeze, carrying with it a curiosity that mirrored the ancient depths of her existence. "Do you know Phoenix?" Daniel's inquiry was laced with genuine intrigue. The sheer volume of jinns in modern Fantasia was staggering, each possessing unique abilities and stories. It was impossible for him to recall the details of each one. "Ah, Phoenix," Paimon's ethereal voice seemed to shimmer like starlight. "She's a being of healing and restoration, a guardian of the sacred flame of rebirth. Her powers are rooted in the delicate balance of life, mending wounds and rejuvenating vitality." "Well, I never thought you'd be obtaining your second Jinn." Paimon was intrigued by her master, and she never expected that he would chase his second Jinn when not a month had yet passed. Daniel's eyes narrowed in concentration as he absorbed the information. Phoenix's abilities could be a game-changer in his quest for strength, offering a layer of support that could prove invaluable. He had obtained the immortal Phoenix Forbidden Fruit, but having multiple sources of healing could only enhance his resilience. Paimon's voice echoed in Daniel's thoughts, a note of caution underscoring her words. "But master, if you know about it, then you'd know that our powers are sealed, hence, Phoenix wouldn't be able to exert her true powers." Daniel nodded in acknowledgement, fully aware of the limitations imposed on their abilities within modern Fantasia. The game-like mechanics that governed their world often came with restrictions, and the sealing of their powers was a part of that intricate balance, or perhaps due to their retaliation against the divine beings. "I'm aware of that," Daniel replied, his tone resolute. "But don't worry, Paimon. It wouldn't hurt for me to have more healing abilities at my disposal. Even if they are not at their full potential, the additional support could prove to be invaluable." Paimon's response was a thoughtful silence, a silent understanding passing between them. It was true that having multiple sources of healing could enhance Daniel's resilience, allowing him to endure and overcome challenges that might otherwise prove insurmountable. "As you wish, master," Paimon's voice held a hint of acquiescence. "Phoenix's essence may still grant you a measure of her restorative power, even if it is not unleashed to its fullest extent." Daniel's determination burned bright, undeterred by the limitations that lay ahead. He knew that every advantage he could gain, no matter how seemingly small, was a step closer to achieving his ultimate goals. With Paimon's guidance and Phoenix's essence beckoning, Daniel pressed forward, ready to forge a bond that would transcend the confines of their sealed powers. "Great, then let me borrow your powers, Paimon." "We're going in full," Daniel declared with a confident smirk, his eyes glinting with determination. "All right then, master. I'll follow wherever you go," Paimon replied, her voice unwavering as she stood by his side, ready to lend her support. With a firm grip on his flabellum, Daniel focused his will and tapped into the wellspring of power that lay within him. His connection with Paimon allowed him to channel her abilities, and as he activated his skill, a brilliant transformation began to unfold. "Jinn equip." Daniel's voice rang out, a command that resonated with the very essence of magic. In an instant, his mundane attire was replaced by a magnificent suit of armor, a dazzling blend of white and gold that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly radiance. The armor was not merely a physical construct, it was woven from pure mana itself, a manifestation of his connection to the mystical forces that flowed through from the flabellum. As the armor enveloped him, Daniel felt a surge of power coursing through his veins. His senses sharpened, and his muscles hummed with newfound strength. His overall stats skyrocketed, a transformation that granted him capabilities far beyond his normal limits. But it wasn't just his physical prowess that underwent a remarkable change. With the wind manipulation ability granted by the Jinn equip, Daniel could now command the chaotic gusts that swirled through the dungeon. He could shape the winds to his will, using them to deflect attacks, create barriers, or even propel himself through the air with remarkable agility. The flabellum, once a simple handheld fan, transformed alongside him. Now a trident-like spear, it crackled with energy, ready to strike down any obstacle that dared to stand in his way. However, this epic transformation came at a cost. The power he wielded required a constant infusion of mana to maintain. Every movement, every manipulation of the winds, drew upon his reserves. It was a delicate balance, a dance of strength and resourcefulness that he would need to master as he delved deeper into the treacherous stages of the Phoenix Dungeon. In the heart of the Phoenix Dungeon's second stage, Daniel's Jinn equip blazed with a brilliant aura as he confronted a pack of 50 wolves. Their snarls echoed through the cavernous chamber, their eyes glinting with a feral hunger. But Daniel stood undaunted, his armor exuding an air of confidence that sent a shiver down even the bravest wolf's spine. As the wolves lunged forward, teeth bared, Daniel's grip tightened on his trident-like spear. With a deft motion, he spun the weapon in a graceful arc, channeling his wind manipulation ability. A gust of wind swirled around him, forming an invisible barrier that deflected the wolves' initial onslaught. Their attacks were met with an impenetrable wall of air, causing them to stumble back, momentarily disoriented. Seizing the advantage, Daniel unleashed a controlled burst of wind from his trident. The gust slashed through the air with deadly precision, cutting through the wolves' ranks like a scythe. Their fur ruffled, and their howls of pain filled the chamber as the wind-driven blades of air left deep gashes on their bodies. One by one, the wolves fell, overpowered by the sheer force of Daniel's wind manipulation. The battle was a symphony of motion, as Daniel weaved and danced amidst the chaos, his armor gleaming like a beacon of power. With each swing of his trident, he sent forth razor-sharp currents of wind that cleaved through the wolves with awe-inspiring accuracy. His mastery over the wind allowed him to anticipate their movements, striking where they were most vulnerable. As the last wolf crumpled to the ground, Daniel stood amidst a sea of defeated foes. His breathing was steady, his expression focused yet serene. The second stage of the dungeon had been conquered, and the wolves that had once threatened him now lay defeated, a testament to his skill and dominance. With each subsequent stage, the wolves evolved and their numbers doubled, presenting a greater challenge. Yet, Daniel's prowess only grew more formidable. In the third stage, he faced the Lupin Blade Masters, wolves with enhanced agility and razor-sharp claws. In the fourth stage, the Frostbite Alphas brought icy winds and frost-laden breath to the fray. Through each stage, Daniel's wind manipulation continued to serve as an unyielding force, enabling him to dispatch his adversaries with calculated precision. As he ascended through the stages, his trident-like spear whirred through the air like a force of nature, and the wolves that once posed a threat were now dispatched with breezy ease. The Thunderpaw Sentinels of the seventh stage fell to their might, followed by the Inferno Fangs on the eighth, and the Eclipse Howlers on the ninth. Noel Dutton each encounter showcased his unwavering dominance, his wind manipulation adapting to the wolves' evolving tactics. Finally, Daniel reached the climactic 10th stage, where the wolves had transformed into the Alpha Wraithclaws, a formidable breed that blended shadow and primal power. As he stepped into the chamber, a palpable tension hung in the air. At the heart of the room stood the final boss, a colossal and fearsome figure known as Black Shadow, a manifestation of the dungeon's malevolent core. The wind howled around him, a tempestuous symphony that matched the intensity of his spirit. The monster lunged forward, its shadowy form stretching out like a specter. But Daniel was ready, his wind manipulation reaching new heights. He unleashed a cyclone of wind, whipping around him with unstoppable force. The wind swirled and surged, forming a maelstrom that enveloped the monstrous figure. The monster roared, but its cries were drowned out by the overwhelming might of the wind. With a final, decisive thrust of his trident, Daniel shattered the shadowy form, dispelling its malevolent energy. The 10th stage was conquered, and the dungeon's final challenge had been vanquished. Daniel stood triumphant, his djinn equip glowing as a testament to his indomitable will and mastery over the winds. Chapter 42. Second Djinn, Phoenix. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Once Daniel had cleared the 10th stage, a golden door manifested right before his eyes, and with the key that was given to him, he stood with a sense of eager anticipation radiating from him. You ready for this, Paimon? Daniel asked with a glint of excitement in his eyes. It's about time to obtain the second Djinn, Phoenix. I'm ready whenever you are, Master. Paimon's voice resonated within his mind through their telepathic connection, a soothing presence. Daniel's lips curled into a confident smile as he clutched the key in his hand. I've never thought I would be contracting with 2 djinns at the same time. Maybe in that sense, should I conquer all of the dungeons? Though the idea seems implausible, it didn't sound ridiculous. The 72 dungeons are all over the continents, and even though all of their powers seem equal, the truth is far from it. Paimon's laughter seemed to dance through his thoughts. That sounds like a good idea, and who knows what happens once you have conquered every dungeon. With determination blazing in his eyes, Daniel met Paimon's ethereal gaze through their telepathic link. It's time to unlock this next chapter. Let's do it. As the key slid effortlessly into the golden door's lock, a sense of destiny enveloped him. The door swung open, revealing a room filled with mountains of gold and treasures, and in the middle of the treasures lies a pendant. It's been a long time, old friend. Paimon's voice echoed in his mind, tinged with anticipation and memories that echoed from 1,000 years ago. Walking forward with expectation, Daniel's fingers closed around the pendant. The moment he held it, a voice reverberated through his mind, a curious and enigmatic presence. I wonder which brave soul has appeared in the dungeon. The pendant seemed to pulse with energy, a prelude to the unexpected. In an instant, wisps of smoke enveloped the surroundings, swirling and twirling. And then, as the mist cleared, an awe-inspiring figure emerged before him. Phoenix stood tall, a majestic and imposing figure. Her sorrowful expression hinted at depths of experience, a story etched in her gaze. Her form was striking, with bird-like feathers gracing her presence. Her hair, a cascade of feathery strands, flowed with ethereal grace. The headdress she wore, intricate and ornate, framed her face like a radiant sun. Multiple necklaces adorned her form, each a testament to her grandeur. Yet, it was the dichotomy of her attire that struck Daniel the most. Amidst the opulence of her jewelry, Phoenix appeared unadorned, her nakedness a symbol of vulnerability and strength combined. Their gazes met, and without words, a connection was forged. Phoenix, the djinn of life, stood before Daniel, her sorrowful eyes speaking volumes. I'm here to form a contract with you, Daniel said, his voice unwavering. Phoenix's gaze held a mix of surprise and curiosity. A contract with me. But human, it seems that you have already formed a contract with a djinn. In response to her words, Paimon materialized, her presence taking shape alongside Daniel. As Phoenix beheld Paimon, memories of their past comradeship flooded her thoughts, a bittersweet nostalgia. Phoenix.it has been a long time, Paimon's voice held a hint of sentiment. Phoenix's sorrowful gaze met Paimon's, a moment of recognition and connection between ancient allies. Paimon, I never thought I would be seeing you like this, in such a form. Paimon's form radiated with a mixture of understanding and companionship. And the human you have contracted with seems quite interesting, Phoenix remarked, her attention shifting to Daniel. Curiosity piqued, Phoenix drew nearer to Daniel, her presence enveloping him as she delved deeper. Her gaze penetrated his soul, uncovering the intricate tapestry of his being. Within the labyrinth of his essence, she discovered an unexpected revelation: his soul was intricately fused with souls that belonged to the Demonia race. Yeah, I never imagined that I would also contract with him as well, Paimon's voice echoed Phoenix's sentiment. Phoenix's gaze flickered between Daniel and Paimon, her thoughts a tempest of emotions. An intriguing twist of fate, indeed. Human, your essence is intertwined with the essence of the Demonia race. This is unprecedented and holds great potential. So, human, do you wish to form a contract with me? Phoenix's inquiry carried a blend of curiosity and intrigue, her ancient eyes fixed on Daniel as if unraveling the depths of his intent. Yes, without a doubt, Daniel's response rang with unwavering determination, his gaze steady as he met Phoenix's fiery eyes. A flicker of contemplation danced within Phoenix's expression. But human, do consider that forming a contract with two jinns simultaneously places tremendous stress on the body and mind. Are you still resolute in your decision? Daniel's conviction remained unshaken, his resolve mirrored in his response. It's not a problem for me as long as I continue to level up. Phoenix's feathers ruffled slightly, her curiosity piqued by his unflinching commitment. She pondered the human's motivation for seeking a contract with two jinns, an unusual path that intrigued her greatly. If that's your answer, then drop blood on the pendant, she instructed, her voice carrying a weight of ancient authority. Following her instruction, Daniel pricked his finger and let a droplet of his blood fall onto the pendant, sealing the contract with a tangible connection between their souls. You have formed a soul-binding contract with the jinn, Phoenix, hence, you have obtained a slot option, Phoenix, for jinn equip, S, and jinn equip weapon, A. As the connection solidified, a surge of power coursed through Daniel, the essence of Phoenix intertwining with his own. The pendant shimmered with newfound energy, a symbol of the unbreakable bond that had been forged. At the same time, Daniel felt a certain weight added to his soul. It wasn't harmful to him, but rather, it was uncomfortable. But he knew it was because of contracting with two jinns that he felt this way. Phoenix's gaze softened, a hint of something akin to approval in her eyes. You are not like any other human, Daniel. This journey shall indeed be interesting. Chapter 43. Unexpected Return Part 1, Point 18, you are listening at NovelFull.audio. Having solidified the contract with the two jinns, Daniel felt a sense of accomplishment and newfound strength. He decided it was time to take a break from the virtual world and log out. As Phoenix and Paimon withdrew to rest within their respective vessels, he initiated the logout command. Log out, he whispered, and his surroundings dissolved into streams of data. In the blink of an eye, he found himself back in his room, his physical body comfortably seated in front of his computer. As he glanced out of his window, the moon's gentle glow bathed the world outside. So it's already this late, huh? A mixture of awe and reflection colored his voice as he contemplated the passage of time within the game. His thoughts turned to his mother, a sense of longing tugging at his heartstrings. I wonder what she's doing now, he mused aloud, his curiosity piqued. With a determined grin, he left his room in search of his mother, eager to reconnect with the real world after his adventures. He roamed through the familiar hallways of his home, the sense of comfort and nostalgia enveloping him. His footsteps echoed softly as he navigated the quiet house. Eventually, he was right in front of her bedroom door. As Daniel gently pushed open the door to his mother's bedroom, he expected to find a quiet scene of serenity. However, what he discovered left him utterly surprised and momentarily speechless. His mother, Layla, was sleeping soundly across her bed, adorned in unexpected attire. He was speechless when she was sleeping across her bed in black lingerie. He stared at her in silence, his eyes wandering across her beautiful legs and her massive breasts which were covered by the dress. Yet, her breast was begging to be freed from it. He knew that his mother was beautiful. With her violet eyes and silvery hair, she was a beauty that all men wanted to have a piece of. To top it off with her milky breast and perky ass and thick body, no one could resist their urge. Yet, Daniel was so shocked to see her like this, as if she was preparing to give herself to someone else. Right now, he should have been embarrassed and preparing to leave the room, yet, he was captivated by her body. His eyes couldn't shun away from her body, and as if the devils were whispering to his body, tempting his emotions. He gulped his saliva the more his eyes gazed all over her body. Daniel. Sensing her son's presence, she looked up at him, her violet eyes staring back at him, and she didn't seem to care that he was in her room while she was dressed like this. "You're back." She smiled and was delighted that her son was back. "I had been waiting for you," she declared, and she didn't sense anything with her appearance. In fact, she purposely had worn this obscene lingerie, and although her breast was covered, her perky nipples couldn't be hidden away. And Layla clearly knew what she was doing. "You were waiting for me," Daniel said, unable to hide his confusion. "Come here." She smiled at him. "I want to tell you something." "No, I need to leave," Daniel replied, but her words didn't make any sense. What did she want to talk about? His mother was acting weird today. She sat up and her hand moved towards him, caressing his cheek as she smiled at him. "Come, there is nothing to be scared of. I promise." Daniel looked up at his mother's violet eyes. He had no idea what she wanted, but something was happening. His eyes were attracted to her breast. Yet, she didn't seem to care at all that he was ogling her. She was a woman. A woman who was a mother to him, yet, she wasn't acting like one. He was so tempted to caress her, but his hands were stuck to his sides. Her other hand moved and touched his hand. Daniel froze as she pulled his hands and guided them to her breasts. He felt something inside his pants rising as his eyes focused on her beautiful breast. His mother was so beautiful, and to him, she was perfect. The fact that he was thinking this about his mother should have horrified him, yet, his hand was already squeezing her soft, plump breast. She moaned as her other hand tried to reach inside his pants, trying to get to his dick. Yet, Daniel couldn't resist her touch. He knew that he needed to stop, or else, they would cross a line that they could never recover. Even though Daniel had wanted to reunite with his mother, the truth is, he had spent a long lifespan where it had blurred his common sense. Even though he remembered his vengeance, his values were distorted. He doesn't see Layla as his mother right now, but as a woman whose beauty couldn't compare. Layla's hands were touching his manhood as her breast was exposed, and Daniel was squeezing her breast hard, forgetting that she was his mother. She was so beautiful, so sexy, so perfect. "Daniel," she moaned as her eyes focused on his penis that was already out. Her eyes were wide as she stared at his penis, and she seemed to be impressed. "So big." Her eyes widened at her son's size, and she gulped her saliva. It was veiny, thick, and long that she wondered whether could she put with it. "I never thought my son would be this big." Still, she felt even hornier after seeing it. Calm wrapping her fingers around his dick, she began stroking him gently as she moved closer to him. Daniel could feel her soft, silky breast pressing against his chest. "Daniel," she whispered with her eyes focusing on him, yet her hands were stroking his dick. "Do you love me?" she asked, her violet eyes gazing at him. "Yes," Daniel said as his eyes wandered across her exposed breast. He was already touching her, and he wanted her to keep stroking him. "Not as a mother, but as a woman?" she inquired further. For Layla, she had taken a risk when she decided to gamble all of her bet on this night. In a way, her common sense was distorted as well. With her love for Daniel, the way she wanted to deepen their relationship was quite extreme. But perhaps, because he was her son, Daniel felt the same way for her, where he wanted to perform the deed with his mother. "No, let me rephrase it, do you want to take me?" she asked, moving closer to him, and Daniel could feel her soft breast pressed against his chest. Her other hand was still rubbing his dick. Daniel didn't know what to say. He knew that she was his mother and they shouldn't be doing this. Yet, he wanted to take her. He wasn't ignorant of sex, but doing it with his mother was out of the norm. Despite that, he doesn't seem to reject the idea of it. Yes, he said. Chapter 44. Unexpected Return Part 2, R.18, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Good. Hearing his positive reply, Layla smiled and her hand moved faster, stroking his dick. Then, I will be yours tonight. She whispered seductively while her other hand moved to his chest, pushing him back. Daniel fell back and she was on top of him, her hand still stroking his dick. I will make you feel good, she said, and her lips moved towards his dick, her tongue licking his tip. Daniel gasped at the sensation and he couldn't believe that his own blood-related mother was about to suck his dick. This wasn't the outcome he had least expected coming back from the future. However, he didn't push away and he even looked forward to it. I will make you mad. Her tongue licked his entire length before wrapping her mouth around the tip of his cock, slowly going deeper. Daniel couldn't contain his groans as his mother sucked his dick, her head bobbing up and down, trying to please his cock. He couldn't help but moan as his hand grabbed the back of her head, his fingers tangled through her silky, silver-colored hair, and pushing her deeper. He closed his eyes and tilted his head back, enjoying the sensations that she was giving him. Gawk-cock. Layla kept sucking and her head went down, trying to take him entirely. He could feel her tongue swirling around his shaft, coating his cock with her saliva. She sucked and slurped, the sounds reverberating through the silent room. Mother, your mouth feels so good, he groaned, his hand tightening on the back of her head. Layla didn't reply, only bobbing her head faster, his dick reaching the back of her throat. She kept going and Daniel could feel the heat pooling in his abdomen. He was close and Layla could feel it. I'm close, mother, she quickened her pace and soon, he came. His seed exploded in her mouth and she drank his cum tasting delicious and fulfilling her thirst. She swallowed every last drop and her head bobbed slower, milking him. That was delicious, son. And did it feel good? She asked, her purple orbs gazing at him. Layla's current expression was horny as if what she had wasn't enough. Yes, Daniel admitted openly, and his guilt of crossing the line began to fade away as it was replaced by his lust. Good, she said, and she straddled him, her legs spreading. With her fingers, she spread her pussy wide open, revealing her glistening pussy and the liquid that was oozing out from it. Take me, Daniel. Her breathing became haggard and her eyes were focusing on her son's menacing dick. His dick was directly above her pussy that stretched out to her stomach. When Layla gazed at it, she was drooling over it. With its veins and pre-cum all over it, her instincts as a woman were kicking in, and her womb began throbbing. Daniel gazed at his mother and couldn't help but nod. Without wasting another second, he slowly and gently slid his dick at the entrance of her pussy before thrusting his cock into her pussy, filling her with his thickness. She moaned as she took him, her inner walls stretching to accommodate his size. Your cock is so amazing. Layla was amazed as his entire cock was inside her. Move, she commanded, and he started moving, thrusting his hips up and down. Their bodies slammed against each other and their moans filled the air. Daniel could feel her warm, wet walls clenching around his cock and he groaned. Daniel, your cock feels so good, more, please, more, she begged, her eyes closed, and her face scrunched up. Fuck me, Daniel. She could feel her body burning up and she felt the pleasure surging through her body. Her breasts bounced as Daniel's thrusts became faster and rougher. Mother, Daniel called, and it was a surreal situation where now, he was having sex with his mother. The thought of having sex with his mother enticed him greatly and it aroused him, and now, he can't stop thrusting, wanting to fill her insides with his semen. Call me, Layla, make me feel like a woman. Son, Layla whispered in her son's ears as she wrapped her hands around his neck. Layla, Daniel said, and Layla grinned, her heart thumping with excitement. You are such a handsome young man, you're making your mother so proud. She smiled and Daniel nodded, his gaze fixed on her bouncing breasts. Layla, I am coming. Me too, fuck me harder." Daniel, hearing her name being called by her son while they were having sex, aroused her, and her pussy clenched tighter. Daniel sped up his movements, their bodies slamming together. He could feel his orgasm approaching and Layla was nearing her own climax. Daniel. Layla. They both reached their peaks and Daniel shot his load into her womb. Layla came and her juices gushed out, coating his cock with her cream. She fell on his chest, breathing heavily, and her breast squished against his toned body. "That was amazing," she said with a smile. "Thank you, Daniel, for granting your mother's wish." Daniel stayed silent. He had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. However, at that moment, his desire and lust were the driving forces of his actions. He doesn't know what to say. He loved his mother and her performance tonight had turned him on. After a while, they had finally recovered from their high and their bodies were entangled with one another. So, he took a deep breath, wanting to address the situation. "Are we really going to continue this?" Daniel knew that their relationship as a mother and a son would change forever. And he wouldn't deny that he didn't love it. But the question is, will his future lovers accept this? "What are you afraid of, son?" Layla felt like the happiest mother in the world. Although she knew she had taken a huge risk, she didn't regret it. Knowing her son had accepted her as a woman is all that matters. "I still have people that I love and I don't know what they might think about it." He was afraid that his future lovers wouldn't accept this, but Layla knew what to say. "Then, you should make them yours, not the other way around." Layla grinned. Layla was a mother who was obsessed and possessive of her son, but because of her good mood, she might have allowed her son to have other women aside from her. "My lovely dear son," she touched his cheeks and with warm eyes, she began talking. "You shouldn't worry about how your future lovers will leave you," she said with a manipulative smile. Moving forward to his ear, she whispered, "Instead, you should make them worry about you leaving them." Her eyes glowed darkly and Layla seemed to have changed a lot after returning from modern Fantasia. At this moment, a strange murky seed was brewing inside his heart. It wasn't harmful, but it was a seed that would change his personality. A change that even the future him had never encountered, and it was quite simple. Which is lust. Previously, his mind was only filled with vengeance and revenge, but now, his lust had been added. Chapter 45 Unexpected Return Final Part, Point 18, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Then Layla paused for a while as Daniel needed some moments to absorb her words. "Shall we continue?" Layla laughed and her laughter sounded so pure and happy. "Sure." Daniel's face crept a smile and his expression was full of lust. His mother's words were still lingering on his mind, but as of now, he wanted to have more sex with her. "But this time, let me ride you. I want to see the look on your face as I fuck myself with your cock." Layla's words sent shivers down his spine. He had no objection to that and with a grin, he was prepared to take her once again. His stamina was nearly limitless. Just by relying on his stats, he could go on for days without any rest. Seconds later, Layla undressed her lingerie and she climbed on top of him. Daniel was greeted with a view of her bare breast, her nipples hard and pointing. She began moving her hips, her ass swaying back and forth. "How do you like your mother's ass?" she inquired, and she knew that her ass was quite big. Using it to her advantage, she slipped her son's dick in between her perky ass and began moving up and down. "Do you like it, Daniel? Do you enjoy it?" It was slippery, but that was erotic itself. "Yeah, Layla," Daniel groaned, his cock growing harder and his hands moved toward her ass, grabbing and squeezing her thick ass. "Layla, you're amazing, your ass feels so good." Feeling the softness of her ass, he can't help but gulp his saliva. "My body was built to please you, and I intend to make sure that you will be satisfied with my body." Layla grinned and her pace increased, her ass slapping against his pelvis. Daniel groaned, his cock twitching and throbbing within her warm, tight walls. "Please, mother," begging for mercy already, "aren't you a naughty boy, mother?" Hush, she sealed her lips together with her son, and even though it was unexpected, he enjoyed it thoroughly. Their tongues were intertwining, and once their lips departed, a string of salivae was made in between them. As their gaze fell into each other, they both knew that their bodies yearned for each other. Just enjoy the ride, my son, she said. Layla's ass kept slapping against his pelvis, the sounds reverberating through the quiet bedroom. Her tits bounced up and down and her body was covered with sweat, her breathing labored. I'm close, Layla, I'm almost there. Layla could feel his orgasm building, and she fastened her pace, stimulating his dick even more. Layla, let it out, baby, Daniel came and he ejaculated with a huge amount of cum that shot upwards and landed all over her ass. Mother, that was amazing. The more he cum, the more his lust grew, and his hands were still grabbing onto her ass. Was it too much? No, I enjoyed it. Good. Layla smiled and her lips captured his. She kissed him passionately and their tongues intertwined. But Mom, I want more, Daniel said, and his gaze toward his mother was full of desires and horniness. Okay, she replied, and a mischievous smirk was present on her face. But still, I can't help but be proud as your mother for having this huge dick. Layla looked behind and discovered that her son's dick was still standing strong, full of vigor and stamina. It was behaving like a volcano, ready to erupt at any time. Moreover, she could see that his dick was leaking pre-cum, showing how horny she was, and that made her smile. Then, let's continue. I wouldn't want to keep my son waiting. Layla's tone was warm, yet, it was also filled with lust and longing. With her massive breast, she took his dick and placed it right in between her breasts. Looking at the sheer size of his dick again, Layla felt her pussy wet. His dick was directly in front of her and she could smell the scent of it, which was strangely addictive. Here, you can come as many times as you want, she said, and Daniel was captivated. His dick was engulfed in between her soft squishy breasts. Fuck, he cursed, the pleasure was unimaginable and it was better than he had expected. Mom, your boobs are perfect, I'm glad you like it, baby. Layla thanked her genetics for possessing such huge breasts and she could use it to pleasure her son. Now, start fucking my boobs that you love so much, Layla grinned. Daniel's hips moved, his cock sliding in between her boobs and her tongue darted out, licking the tip of his cock. Layla's tongue swirled around his shaft and her hand held her tits, squeezing them, trapping his dick between her mounds. Daniel groaned, his cock thrusting faster, his hands grabbing the sheets beneath him. Your tits feel so good, Mom, they are all yours, baby, keep going, I'm so close, don't hold it back, baby. Mom. Come, baby, come, paint my face with your milk, Daniel came, his cum splattering across her face and into her open mouth. She closed her eyes and her tongue tasted his semen, his cum filling her mouth, and she drank his seed, savoring the taste. So, how was it? You're the best, Mom. Daniel was gradually accepting this relationship with his mother and it was too good for him to deny. I'm glad you like it. Layla was satisfied, seeing her son's smiling face made her heart melt. But, I want to try something else. His lust was increasing and he wanted to try different types of pleasures. Oh. Layla was all the more delighted that her son was taking the initiative, and she allowed her son to do whatever he wanted with her. Daniel pushed his mother's body on the bed, her back landed on the bed and his face was now above her, his tongue licking her breast. Daniel began licking her breast, his tongue circling her erect nipple. Layla could only moan, her fingers running through his hair, encouraging him. His hand fondled her other breast, his thumb brushing against her nipple, and she whimpered. Oh, Daniel, please, don't stop. Of course, Mother, and I'm not stopping until I make you come, Daniel said, and his mouth latched onto her nipple, sucking and licking. Layla's moans were louder and she was losing herself, her body trembling, and her pussy getting wetter. Daniel was relentless, his tongue flicking and his lips sucking, his other hand caressing her skin, and she was drowning in ecstasy. Ah, Daniel. Don't stop. More. Layla couldn't think, her mind clouded with pleasure and her body writhing. Her pussy was leaking and her juices were flowing out, staining the bedsheet below. Daniel kept going, his mouth working her nipple, and his fingers were playing with her other nipple. Layla was getting close and her moans were growing louder, her body tensing, and her back arched, pushing her tits into his face. Daniel, Daniel. Murur. Keep going, I'm so close. I'm gonna come, don't stop, don't ever stop. Aya. Layla screamed as she came, her pussy squirting and her juices spurting out, soaking the sheets and his face. Daniel kept going, his tongue lapping her nipples and his hand squeezing her breast, his finger pinching her sensitive nubs. I can't take it anymore. Layla pushed his head deeper, her tit in his mouth, and her pussy was throbbing, her climax reaching new heights. Aw. She arched her back and she squirted with an indescribable expression. It was amazing, her breath was haggard yet she was fulfilled. I never knew that having your nipples sucked would make me feel this good. Now, I'm the one who can't get enough, she chuckled. Come here, let me give you a kiss. Layla went nearer to his face and kissed him, their tongues intertwining, and her arms wrapped around his neck. They kissed for a few minutes before pulling apart. Now, I'm ready, Layla said. What do you have in mind? She inquired with excitement. Just lay down and relax, I will take care of the rest, Daniel eagerly smiled. Sure, I will listen to you son, she obeyed his words. Layla laid down and her legs spread, her pussy glistening and inviting. Do your worst, Daniel, she taunted with her wet pussy. I will mother, he replied with a smirk and got down, his cock positioned near her wet entrance, and without a second thought, he thrust his dick inside her. Layla's eyes rolled to the back of her head as his dick penetrated her folds and his shaft buried itself in her tightness. This is it. Fuck, Daniel, fuck me, fill me with your seed, make me come, baby, I will, mom, I will make you scream. Daniel's hips moved and his cock pounded her, his shaft sliding in and out of her wet cunt, her pussy gripping his manhood. Layla's cries of pleasure filled the room, her nails scratching his back, and her legs were locked around his waist. Harder, Daniel, harder, I can't get enough, fuck me, I love you, mom, I love you, I know, baby, I love you too. They kissed each other once again while Daniel ferociously slammed his dick inside of her puss without holding back. Her pussy insides had been stretched wide open to the open, it couldn't be reshaped and had memorized the shape of his dick. Each time he penetrated, his dick kissed her womb, causing unimaginable pleasure to Layla and she was biting her teeth to hold back her expression. Their bodies slapped against each other, their skin sweaty and slippery, and their breathing erratic. Daniel was relentless, his thrusts never slowing, and his dick was hitting her sweet spot, her inner walls clamping around his meat rod. Layla was lost in the euphoria, her body shuddering, her toes curling, her climax approaching. I'm coming baby. She warned and her hands wrapped around his back, pulling her son's body closer to her. Me too mother. Daniel too was reaching his end and he sped up his pace, with her liquids and his pre-cum dirtying the bed. Oh. I'm coming. I can't hold it back anymore mom. Let's come together baby, she suggested. Ah. It's coming out mother. Fill me with your seeds baby. Eventually, Daniel's dick released a huge amount of semen inside her pussy and the amount was overwhelming. At the same time, Layla squirted as it mixed around with his semen. Ha! Her breathing was out of rhythm and she tried to get back her breathing. You released too much baby. She smiled as she stared at her bloated stomach and her pussy was oozing out his semen together with her liquid. That just shows how much I love you mom, he lay down right beside her. Layla couldn't hide her smile and she was experiencing the biggest joy she ever had. But noticing his dick that was still hardened, she couldn't help but lick her lips. It seems my boy is still not satisfied. How naughty are you? She grabbed his dick and stroked it and she still could feel how hard and hot it was. Mom, that I still want more, he asked. I guess I have no choice but to fulfill my son's desires, she grinned and she crawled to his crotch before pressing his thick dick against her cheeks. I guess tonight's going to be busy for both of us, she said. Chapter 46 After the sex. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. It was an intimate night for the both of them, but they had no regrets. Instead, the more they indulge themselves in their desires, the more they discover the love they have for each other. And that love was enough for them. The following morning, the rays of sunlight seeped into the windows, shining upon their naked bodies. Both were exhausted and their minds were clouded by lust and desires. The last thing on their mind was how the whole situation came to be. They didn't care about the consequences and all they could think about was having their needs fulfilled. Daniel's eyes opened, his vision slowly returning to him, and he turned his head toward the woman right next to him. He was surprised at first, and then his memories from the night before came flooding back, and he remembered the pleasure that the two had experienced. Layla, his mother, was lying next to him, her breasts pressed against his chest and her legs entwined with his. He was captivated by her beauty, her long black hair covering part of her face, and her soft features. Now that he sees his mother's naked body, he doesn't feel ashamed anymore. What was enough is that he loved her and in a way obsessed with her. Layla was his mother, the woman who had given birth to him, and she was also his woman. He was unsure of what the future would bring, but he knew that he couldn't live without her, and the feelings of lust and desire were still there. Layla was his mother, and that fact will never change. Even though it was forbidden in the eyes of many, he was happy, and he didn't care about the opinions of others. Layla's eyes fluttered open and she was greeted by her son's handsome face, her heart beating faster, and she was overwhelmed by the emotions that she was feeling. "Good morning, my dear," she whispered, and she planted a kiss on his forehead. "Good morning, Mom," Daniel replied. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, how about you?" "I slept like a log," Layla chuckled. "It was all because of you," she teased with a smile. "Because of me?" Daniel raised his eyebrow and felt like he was wronged. "Well, the reason why I slept so well was because you made me come a lot," Layla replied, and her tone was full of teasing. "Really?" "Yeah, and I would be happy to help you anytime, Mother," Daniel replied teasingly. "That's my boy," she laughed, and never did she laugh this good. It felt like she was experiencing a dream she didn't want to wake up from. "So, what are your plans today, my dear?" Layla asked. Even though Layla wished to spend more time with her son and indulge in their desires, she knew that he had a goal to achieve and she didn't wish to stop him. "I was planning on staying and grinding more in Modern Fantasia." Daniel already had plans for what he wanted to do today. "Really? But then don't wear yourself too much, dear." Layla was concerned about her son. Although he had returned to the past, there was no telling what would happen to me. With their relationship now, she became even more obsessive with him, and all the more she didn't want to lose him. "Don't worry, I won't push myself that far," he reassured his mother while caressing her cheeks. "Besides, I want to spend more time with you, Mom," he said honestly. "Oh, and the same goes for me, honey," she smiled widely at his words. "Let's make the most out of it, shall we?" "Of course, Mom." They both shared a smile, and their hands found each other, their fingers intertwined, and their bodies pressed against each other. Their love for each other was true, and they were determined to spend every moment together, no matter what happened. "I love you, Daniel, and I love you, Layla." The two leaned closer and kissed passionately, their lips brushing against each other and their tongues dancing. The room was filled with the sound of their moans and the smell of their sweat, and their lust was apparent. Daniel and Layla were consumed by their desires and they let themselves go, their bodies melting into each other and their souls connected. It was a passionate and intimate moment, and one that they would cherish for the rest of their lives. After a few minutes, the two separated and stared at each other, their eyes locked and their breath heavy. "That was amazing, my dear, but it seems that you still have energy." Layla's sultry tone hung in the air like a seductive melody. "Well, I guess I could spend time with you again, Mom." Daniel could use some spare time with his mother for a quickie, and she didn't refuse at all. Then let's have a good short time. Messel's voice was a velvet caress, her lips curving into a seductive smile that sent a jolt of desire through Daniel's veins. Her words hung in the air like an irresistible temptation, and he couldn't help but feel drawn into her magnetic presence. "I'm all yours," she whispered with seductive energy. Layla and Daniel spend the next hour indulging in their desires once again. Once Daniel and Layla finished making love, she invited him to the bathroom for a quick shower. "Come on, sweetheart, let's get clean," Layla said as she grabbed her son's hand and pulled him toward the bathroom. "It will be my pleasure," Daniel replied with a smirk. Although he had never showered with his mom, he didn't find it weird. After all, they both had sex. What does a shower with his mom even mean to him? They entered the bathroom and she turned on the water, letting the hot stream flow down their bodies. She looked at her son and licked her lips. His naked body was perfect and his muscles were sculpted, his abs were well defined, and his dick was long and thick. "You're a handsome young man," she muttered, and she couldn't take her eyes off him. "Well, you are very beautiful too, Mom," he replied, and his gaze roamed over her curvaceous figure. Her breasts were plump and her skin was flawless. "Let me wash your back for you, honey," she offered, and he turned around, letting her reach for the soap. Her hands were slippery and slick, and her touch was gentle and tender, massaging the knots out of his shoulders. "How's that?" "That's nice, thanks, Mom, don't mention it." Layla rubbed his back, her hands gliding across his smooth skin, and her touch was comforting. Daniel smiled, her warmth was soothing and the way her hands caressed his back made him relax. "This is so relaxing, Mom, I'm glad you're enjoying it." After a few minutes, she stopped and handed him the soap. "Here, now you do me, I'm happy too." Daniel couldn't deny the fact that he was getting excited. His mind wandered and he thought about her wet pussy, her soft skin, and her inviting lips. He began scrubbing her back, his hands tracing her curves, and his fingers grazing her flesh. "Oh, that's the spot, Daniel," she moaned. "I'm glad," he continued, washing her, his touch firm, and his grip strong. As he moved to her front, he couldn't help but look at her perky breasts, and her erect nipples were calling him. Layla grabbed the soap and started cleaning her body. Daniel watched her as she washed herself, his eyes drawn to her full hips and her toned legs. "Are you enjoying the view, baby?" she teased. "You're beautiful, Mom," he can't help but compliment her. "Thank you, Daniel." She couldn't get enough of hearing her son's compliment and she wanted more. After a while, they were done, and they got out, drying themselves with towels. "That was refreshing, thank you, sweetheart," Layla said and hugged him tightly. As they had showered and spent their time afterwards, Daniel was about to enter modern fantasia, but before he did, his mother called out to him. "Baby, can I have a minute of your time before you leave?" "Sure." Daniel walked over and sat next to her. "No matter what happens, I'll be by your side all right." She embraced him and placed his head against her chest as he felt the beat of her heart. "I don't want you to shoulder everything to yourself, dear." She was worried that Daniel would stress himself out. "So, rely on me more, all right?" "Yeah, Mom, and I'll do that." He enjoyed her warmth and feeling such sensation. He never thought that reconciling his mom would have such an effect and change his life tremendously. "I love you, and no matter where you are or who you are, you will always be my dear." She smiled and kissed him on the forehead. "Be safe and come back home." She had always wanted to utter those words, like a mother who would watch her son leave her house for school. "I will." Moments like these were what Daniel wanted to achieve, and although it had derived greatly from his expectation, it was still the same in the end. They shared a hug and parted ways. Daniel left the room, a warm feeling in his chest and his thoughts focused on the upcoming events. "Let's do this," he whispered to himself and entered modern fantasia. Chapter 47 Easy Breeze. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. In the ethereal realm of the tower, Daniel's presence was an overwhelming force of nature, a convergence of power and purpose that shook the very fabric of reality. As he ascended to floor 177, a battleground materialized before him, a canvas upon which his might and determination would clash with the relentless forces of the Snay, serpent-like creatures adorned with intricate scale patterns that wove tales of their existence. As the snakes slithered forward, driven by their primal instincts, 25 of them converged upon the silhouette of the young man standing before them. The patterns of marks on their scales glistened in the ethereal light, each inscribed line telling a tale of their existence, a unique fingerprint of identity akin to that of a human. In the human continent, the beauty of snake scales was highly sought after by consumers, some of whom sent requests to guilds to amass these captivating marks. Tailors would then painstakingly incorporate these scales into various objects, creating intricate and exquisite pieces that held both artistic and symbolic value. However, the snake that now confronted Daniel were not destined to preserve their scales. Their slithering forms moved with uncanny grace, the patterns on their scales shifting and shimmering as they closed in on their target. Their mouths opened wide, revealing venomous fangs that glistened with a deadly promise. Yet, even as the snake lunged forward, their hunger for the hunt evident in their crimson eyes, they were met with a force that dwarfed their own. The silhouette of the young man emanated an aura of power, a presence that was both commanding and formidable. As the first snake lunged, its fangs poised to strike, the young man moved with a swiftness that defied perception. His body became a blur of motion as he sidestepped the attack, the snake's venomous bite narrowly missing its mark. In response, the young man extended his hand, his palm glowing with otherworldly energy. With a single gesture, he summoned forth a torrent of wind that spiraled into existence, a manifestation of his Jinn weapon equip, A. Unlike Jinn equip, S, the Jinn weapon equip, A, was a lesser form that didn't require summoning Paimon. It allowed Daniel to manipulate wind to a certain extent, but still, it was deadly. The gusts of wind converged upon the encroaching snake, forming a swirling tempest of cutting force. The winds tore into the snake's scaled forms, their exquisite patterns of marks offering no protection against the onslaught. The creatures' cries were carried away by the howling tempest as their bodies disintegrated into nothingness, their existence reduced to naught but dust. You have killed 25 snake and have obtained 174k EXP, plus 400%. Congratulations, you have leveled up to 177 and have earned 10 SP. The loots and monsters' cores have been transported into your inventory. The aftermath was destruction, a testament to the young man's unparalleled might. The patterns of marks that once adorned the snake's scales now littered the ground, a stark reminder of the battle that had transpired. It'll be much faster if I breeze it through rather than taking my sweet time, he thought. He wanted to quickly earn all of the gains he could before returning to spend some time with his mother. Even then, he knew that obtaining more powers was more important. Nodding his head in satisfaction, Daniel moved on to the next floor where he was immediately transported upon accepting the tower system notification. Do you wish to move on? Now, this may have never been said before, but the reason why hunters or players preferred hunting in dungeon and towers to danger zone is because, unlike danger zone, dungeon and towers have a lower chance of dying. Though dungeons doesn't allow you to quit in the middle of a battle, towers allowed doing so except for any unforeseen trap, just like how Daniel acquired the Dark Sovereign class. The air around Daniel crackled with anticipation as he stepped onto the 178th floor of the tower. Before him, a blazing inferno awaited the Afrit, living flames that danced with an otherworldly fervor. These beings, born of the elements and spirits, were unlike anything he had encountered before. 20 pairs of purplish flames converged upon him, casting an eerie glow that painted the battlefield. The Afrit were relentless, their primal instincts driving them forward in a wave of fiery aggression. But Daniel was no ordinary opponent. He was a fusion of power and purpose, his determination to overcome anything in his path remains unyielding. Instead of evading, he welcomed the searing flames that erupted from the Afrit's chests. Lightning danced across his form, embracing the torrent of purplish fire. The two forces clashed, a symphony of destructive energy and chaotic beauty. Lightning intertwined with flames, a deadly waltz that crackled and roared. As the purplish flames sought to consume him, they were met with the volatile power of lightning, each force feeding off the other's intensity. The combination was overwhelming, a tempest of elements that bathed the battlefield in an otherworldly radiance. With a focused breath, Daniel channeled the energies further. His body became a conduit, a vessel for the fusion of lightning and light. His form seemed to blur as the two forces intermingled, a living embodiment of raw power. The ground beneath him trembled as he unleashed a surge of energy, sending shockwaves through the very air. The Afrite's fiery onslaught met a force they couldn't contain. The clash was cataclysmic, flames and lightning spiraling in a frenzied dance. The Afrite cried out, their forms racked with the sheer intensity of the collision. And then, in a blinding burst of radiance, the battlefield was enveloped in a bluish-white blaze. When the brilliance finally faded, the 178th floor stood silent. The Afrite, once a formidable force, had been reduced to smoldering remnants. The ground bore scars of the battle, a testament to the overwhelming power that had been unleashed. You have killed 20 Afrite and have obtained 178k EXP, plus 400%, BDNV. Congratulations, you have leveled up to 178 and have earned 10 SP. The loots and monsters cores have been transported into your inventory. Daniel stood at the center of the aftermath, his breath coming in measured, controlled waves. On the 179th floor of the tower, Daniel's gaze fell upon the 20.5 prow that awaited him. Their forms blazed with intensity, and a sense of challenge emanated from their very presence. Yet, as he stared at the monsters, a subtle smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. With a confident click of his fingers, the air around him seemed to ignite. In an instant, hundreds of fireballs materialized in the space before him. The orbs of intense heat hovered, suspended in the air as if awaiting his command. In a display of power and precision, Daniel unleashed his control over the fireballs. With a sweeping gesture, he directed the fiery onslaught toward the prow. The air crackled with energy as the fireballs streaked through the air, leaving trails of blazing light in their wake. Boom 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 explosions erupted across the battlefield as the fireballs made contact with the prow. The ferocious flames engulfed the creatures, their fiery bodies consumed by the unrelenting inferno. The battlefield became a maelstrom of heat and chaos, the prow's agonized cries echoing through the air. In a matter of seconds, the onslaught ceased, and silence settled over the scorched remnants of the battlefield. The once formidable prow had been obliterated without mercy, their existence reduced to smoldering embers and charred earth. You have killed 25 prow and have obtained 179k EXP, plus 400%. Congratulations, you have leveled up to 178 and have earned 10 SP. The loots and monsters cores have been transported into your inventory. Chapter 48 Stage 200 You are listening at NovelFull.audio. From floor 180 to 199, Daniel's path was one of breeze conquest. The monsters that he challenged were met with overwhelming force, a display of power that left no room for doubt. Lightning crackled and danced at his fingertips, a deadly symphony of energy that he wielded with precision. The air around him seemed to shimmer with the radiance of light manipulation, a brilliant display of his control over this ethereal element. As he faced each new stage, Daniel's eyes blazed with resolution. The monsters may have grown more intelligent, their tactics more cunning, but they were still no match for his powers. Lightning lashed out, striking true with unerring accuracy. The creatures that dared to oppose him were engulfed in brilliant arcs of electricity, their forms writhing and convulsing in the grip of his power. And then came the light manipulation, a radiant force that bathed the battlefield in a dazzling glow. The monsters, no matter how cunning, were blinded by the brilliance, their senses overwhelmed by the intensity of his control. Spears of light materialized with a mere thought, piercing through their defenses with the speed of thought itself. One by one, the monsters fell before him, their formidable forms reduced to mere echoes of their former selves. It was a symphony of destruction, a testament to his command over the elements and his unwavering resolve. The ground shook beneath the force of his attacks, and the air crackled with the aftermath of his power. And as the last of the monsters crumbled to the ground, defeated and broken, Daniel stood amidst the wreckage, a figure of indomitable strength and power. The path from floor 180 to 199 had been an effortless march of victory. As the echoes of battle faded, Daniel's breathing steadied. The monsters had been formidable, but he had proven himself mightier. With a sense of accomplishment, he continued his ascent, knowing that greater challenges awaited would become harder. In Daniel's future, leveling up a single level on a single floor alone was extremely rare. While there were instances of hunters and players soloing entire floors, leveling up within a single floor was almost unbelievable. After all, who would believe such a claim? For players or hunters attempting to solo a floor, it usually took at least 5 attempts to gather enough experience. However, by the third or fourth try, their resources would run low. Constantly using their mana without breaks for regeneration was like asking them to run a marathon without any pauses. Only a few exceptional players with similar classes or abilities as Daniel could replicate his feat without issues. One such potential candidate was the Holy Knights of Apocalypse, Earth's last line of defense. Furthermore, those in teams didn't make much progress because the experience points weren't shared among the members. Team progress followed a first-come, first-serve approach. This often led to disputes and fights among players, especially when the team was part of a guild, adding tension to their dynamics. However, players also had to consider another factor when soloing higher floors. The monsters on these floors were more experienced and intelligent. It wasn't as leisurely as hunting on lower floors. As the floor number increased, so did the viciousness of the monsters. Thus, players attempting to solo should never underestimate the challenges posed by the monsters they face. On the 200th floor, Daniel's demeanor had transformed into one of unwavering resolve and deep-seated hatred against all monsters. As he stepped onto the floor, he immediately sensed an eerie and unfamiliar atmosphere, causing his brows to furrow. This was unlike any of the previous floors, and as he moved further in, he couldn't shake the feeling of a formidable presence lingering ahead. This sensation. Could it be a boss? No, it's more than that. Is it a unique boss? This feeling. It reminds me of the monsters that invaded Earth in the future. His footsteps echoed as he trod onward, his mind filled with memories of the harrowing events that transpired on Earth. The monsters that invaded Earth, known as Apocalypse monsters, were far more potent and destructive than their counterparts in modern Fantasia. Their onslaught nearly brought the world to ruin, leaving a deep scar on his memory. He clenched his hand into a fist, anger coursing through him as he remembered the horrors he had witnessed. The question of why the Earth players didn't simply eliminate the monsters was a valid one, but the answer was clear to Daniel. These were not ordinary monsters, they were the dreaded Apocalypse monsters, possessing power and abilities that far surpassed anything found within the confines of the game. The highest echelons of these monsters were known as unique bosses, and their presence could be felt on this floor. Daniel's knowledge of the tower's mechanics and the hierarchy of monsters was comprehensive. He understood that every 100 floors marked a significant increase in the monster's strength, and unique bosses were formidable adversaries that could require dozens or even hundreds of players to overcome. In the past of the future, I was paralyzed by fear, reluctant to face the dangers of the tower head-on. I was afraid of death, both in the game and in reality. But now, things have changed, Daniel thought, his determination taking root within him. As he approached the monsters on the floor, a mixture of anticipation and resolution filled his gaze. The number of creatures amassed before him was staggering, nearing 100 in total. At the end of the floor, seated upon a grand throne, was the embodiment of his anticipation, an Emperor Chaos Gob, a monstrous entity as tall as a 3-story building. "So, you're the unique boss I've been sensing," he muttered, his gaze unwavering as he locked eyes with the imposing figure. Emperor Chaos Gob, an evolved form of the loathed Chaos Gob from the Demon Continent, exuded an aura of power that resonated throughout the floor. This was a monster species despised by all races, and yet, its evolved form was even more fearsome, a foe capable of rivaling the combined might of hundreds of players. Daniel's inner turmoil had subsided, replaced by newfound confidence and determination. He no longer held back. The memory of his past cowardice fueled his current resolve, to face any challenge head-on, regardless of the odds. With an air of mockery, he watched as the Emperor Chaos Gob ordered its chaotic minions to charge at him. In response, a sinister gleam shone in Daniel's eyes. Shadows seemed to dance around him, and with a click of his fingers, his shadowy soldiers were summoned to the fore. With a voice that resonated like thunder, Daniel's command pierced the air, sending shockwaves through the very fabric of the floor. "Rise, my shadow soldiers." The ground trembled beneath his feet, and as if responding to his call, shadows began to materialize from the darkness itself. Their emergence was a spectacle that defied comprehension, an ethereal army born from the depths of his skill. What was once a barren battleground was now inundated with a staggering multitude of shadows, their forms stretching far and wide. The sight was awe-inspiring, a breathtaking display of power that left all who witnessed it in a state of stunned disbelief. The ground seemed to shift and writhe as the shadows surged forth, their numbers beyond counting, their presence overwhelming. Before the Emperor Chaos Gob stood a legion of darkness, an assemblage of shadow soldiers that oozed an unfathomable aura. Each shadow bore the semblance of a different monstrous form, an amalgamation of fearsome creatures united by a singular purpose. Their eyes burned with an eerie light, their outlines sharp and distinct against the dimly lit backdrop. As they encircled Daniel, it was as though he was the king commanding his loyal subjects. The shadows gathered around him, their presence formidable and imposing. He exuded an air of hunger, a thirst for battle that was palpable in the air. The Emperor Chaos Gob, once confident in its dominance, now found itself dwarfed by the sheer might of the shadow soldiers. Its imposing form seemed diminished in comparison to the overwhelming force arrayed against it. The battlefield had transformed into a realm where light and darkness collided, where the clash of powers could destroy cities. And in the midst of this dramatic tableau stood Daniel, his stance unwavering, his eyes ablaze with determination. He was the conductor of this symphony of shadows, the master of a force that defied reason and comprehension. The silence that followed was laden with tension, an anticipatory hush that hung in the air. The shadow soldiers awaited their commander's orders, their collective gaze fixed upon the adversary before them. The Emperor Chaos Gob could only watch, its former arrogance now replaced with a gnawing sense of unease. In this pivotal moment, as darkness and light converged, the stage was set for an epic confrontation unlike any other. The shadow soldiers were poised for battle, their hunger for victory matched only by Daniel's unyielding resolve. The floor trembled beneath the weight of their presence, the very atmosphere charged with the promise of an impending clash that would reverberate through the annals of the tower. Chapter 49 The Power of Light. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Kill them. Daniel's voice echoed with unwavering resolution, and in response, his shadow soldiers surged forward, a relentless tide of darkness that engulfed the battlefield. The Apets, fierce and ravenous, charged into the fray with a primal hunger, their massive forms barreling through the ranks of goblins. Fangs and claws tore through flesh and bone, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The air was thick with the scent of blood as the Apets tore into their foes, their primal instincts guiding their every move. The Blitz, nimble and cunning, weaved through the chaos with deadly grace. Their queen's mere presence exuded an aura of poisonous corruption, malevolent energy that seeped into the minds of their enemies. With a ghastly shriek, their foes clutched at their heads, their very brains melting under the onslaught of the Blitz's sinister influence. A cacophony of roars and elemental fury heralded the arrival of the Caxer, their massive forms radiating power. With each roar, elemental energy surged forth, obliterating the enemy minions with effortless precision. The ground trembled as their attacks tore through the battlefield, leaving nothing but smoldering ruins in their wake. Beside them, the Crimson Lions weaved a dance of chaos, their synergy manifesting in a whirlwind of destruction that dragged their enemies down into the abyss. Giant figures strode across the battlefield, their presence commanding attention. Jia, Heinz, and Vaz, titans of strength and might, stomped their feet, causing the ground to quake beneath them. Jia's command over chaos materialized in a hail of rocks that rained down upon their enemies, each impacting a cataclysmic force of destruction. The Vengers, elusive and cunning, seized control of their adversaries, turning them against one another in a macabre display of possession and corruption. Above it all, Archons soared through the skies, their radiant wings casting beams of pseudo-chaotic light. Their unique abilities buffed their allies, infusing them with newfound strength, while their enemies faltered under the weight of debilitating debuffs. The battlefield became a symphony of chaos and order, each note struck by the Archon resonating with undeniable power. Trolls stood as stalwart defenders, their magical attacks supporting their comrades as they surged forward. Erdos and Rios, bird-like creatures crackling with lightning, unleashed bolts of energy that lanced through the ranks of minions. The air crackled with electricity as their attacks left scorched remnants in their wake. Amidst the chaos, Daniel stood as the conductor of this symphony of destruction, his purplish eyes ablaze with determination. The Shadow Soldiers moved with a single purpose, a united force that left nothing but devastation in its wake. As minions fell beneath their onslaught, the battlefield became a tapestry of carnage and power. The clash was titanic, a clash of elemental fury and raw strength. The Emperor Chaos Gob, once a towering figure of arrogance, now found itself besieged by a force beyond comprehension. Its minions faltered and fell, their efforts paling in comparison to the overwhelming might arrayed against them. In the heart of the chaos, Daniel stood with a smile. His Shadow Soldiers moved with uncanny coordination, their every action a testament to his command. The battle raged on, a tempest of power and destruction that would forever be etched into the annals of the tower's history. Infuriated by the relentless assault on its minions, the Emperor Chaos Gob rose to its full height, an aura of pure power radiating from its form. With a furious roar, it unleashed a torrent of energy, a palpable force that pushed back the Shadow Soldiers with a startling intensity. The shadows wavered, their cohesion threatened by the Emperor's overwhelming presence. But amidst the clash of auras, a resolve burned within Daniel's eyes. He felt the Emperor's power pressing against him, but he wasn't affected at all. With a deep breath, he focused his energy, channeling his inner strength to withstand the Emperor's onslaught. The shadows rallied, their forms stabilizing as they pushed against the Emperor's aura. In a stunning reversal, Daniel's will prevailed. The shadows once pushed back, surged forward once more, their determination unwavering. The Emperor's aura faltered, its hold weakening under the pressure of the Shadow Soldiers' advance. Daniel's lips curled into a confident smirk as he exerted his control over the shadows, driving them onward. However, an unexpected voice resonated in his mind. It was the Queen, her thoughts reaching out to him through telepathy. She expressed her desire to stand by his side, to continue supporting him in this final confrontation. Daniel's heart warmed at her loyalty, but he knew that her role had been fulfilled. "It's all right," he communicated back to her, his mental voice filled with appreciation. "You've done more than enough. Leave the rest to me." The Queen's joy was palpable, her antennas wriggling in delight as she retreated into the shadows, leaving Daniel and the Emperor to face each other in the heart of the battlefield. Surveying the carnage around them, Daniel's gaze settled on the fallen bodies of the minions. Blood pooled like rivers, their gruesome end a testament to the chaos that had unfolded. The brutality of the scene was difficult to bear, yet his determination remained unshaken. With a mutual understanding, Daniel and the Emperor ceased their attacks, a tense calm settling over the battlefield. They approached one another with measured steps, each movement laden with the weight of their power. The distance between them closed, a mere meter separating their formidable forms. The air crackled with energy, a tangible anticipation that hung between them. Daniel's purplish eyes met the Emperor's gaze, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. In the face of the towering Emperor Gob, Daniel exuded an air of calm confidence, his eyes meeting the creature's menacing gaze. Despite the height difference, he refused to be cowed, his determination unwavering. As the Emperor released its outburst of aura, Daniel responded in kind, his own monarch bloodlust surging forth. The clash of their auras sent shockwaves through the air, creating an electric atmosphere that crackled with anticipation. With a flick of his fingers, Daniel initiated his diverse use of light manipulation. Beams of radiant light shot forth like lances, weaving through the air with precision. The Emperor, caught off guard, attempted to deflect the beams with its aura, but Daniel's control over the light was impeccable. The beams danced around the Emperor's defenses, striking true and leaving faint trails of scorching energy in their wake. But Daniel wasn't content with a straightforward assault. As the Emperor recoiled from the barrage of light, he infused the beams with varying degrees of intensity. Some beams were blindingly bright, searing through the air like mini-suns, while others pulsed with a soft glow, disorienting the Emperor and making it difficult to predict the next strike. As the Emperor struggled to adapt, Daniel's manipulation of light took on a more artistic form. He conjured intricate patterns of light that spun and twirled around the Emperor, creating a mesmerizing dance of luminescence. The patterns closed in, forming a radiant cage that confined the Emperor, limiting its movements and sapping its strength. But Daniel wasn't finished there. With a surge of power, he summoned radiant tendrils of light that coiled around the Emperor's limbs, restricting its actions further. The Emperor roared in frustration, its attempts to break free only fueling Daniel's amusement. In a final display of his mastery, Daniel condensed his control over light into a blinding sphere that he hurled at the Emperor. The sphere exploded on impact, engulfing the creature in a dazzling burst of light that left it disoriented and vulnerable. With the Emperor weakened and dazed, Daniel closed in with swift and calculated movements. He weaved threads of light around his fists, imbuing them with raw energy. With a resounding strike, he landed blow after blow on the Emperor, each hit resonating with the force of a meteor impact. The Emperor staggered, its defiance crumbling under Daniel's relentless onslaught. As a final coup de grace, Daniel channeled his light manipulation into his very being, his entire form glowing with an ethereal radiance. With a single, mighty punch, he shattered the Emperor's defenses and sent it hurtling across the battlefield. The Emperor crashed to the ground, its form dissipating into motes of darkness. The silence that followed was deafening, the battlefield now a scene of absolute stillness. Daniel stood amidst the aftermath, his breathing steady and his eyes reflecting the brilliant light that surrounded him. The overwhelming victory was a testament to Daniel's command over light manipulation, his diverse and creative use of the power leaving no doubt as to his prowess. The Emperor Gob had been no match for his calculated strategy and relentless determination. As the dust settled, Daniel's triumphant smirk conveyed a message clear as day: he was a force to be reckoned with, and the tower's challenges were mere stepping stones on his path to greater heights. Chapter 50 Unimaginable Progress. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. You have killed 100 Chaos Gob and 1 unique boss, Emperor Chaos Gob, and have obtained 2 million EXP. The loot and monsters cores have been transported inside your inventory. Congratulations, you have leveled up to 204 and have obtained 50 SP. Congratulations, you have unlocked your third slot of class. Congratulations, you have gained a tremendous boost of stats for reaching level 200, L.C. Congratulations, you have become the first player to reach level 200, thus, you have received one mysterious box. In an awe-inspiring display of power, Daniel harnessed his mastery of light manipulation and deployed his formidable shadow soldiers to conquer the challenges that awaited him on floors 201 to 250 of the tower. With each stage, he summoned intricate patterns of radiant light, weaving them into beams of destruction that effortlessly obliterated any monsters that dared to challenge him. His shadow soldiers, a relentless and seemingly endless army, swarmed the enemies with calculated precision. Shadows took on the forms of various creatures, converging and overwhelming the monsters with their sheer numbers and relentless attacks. As Daniel commanded, they spread out, filling the air with an eerie presence that sent shivers down the spines of any creature that dared to cross their path. The monsters on these floors, though immensely powerful, stood little chance against the combined might of Daniel's light manipulation and shadow soldiers. His tactics were as diverse as they were devastating, from blinding flashes of light that disoriented foes to concentrated beams that pierced through their defenses. Every encounter became a symphony of light and darkness, a testament to his growing prowess. With relentless determination, Daniel pressed forward, each victory fueling his resolve. The battles were intense, pushing him to the limits of his abilities, but he emerged from each clash triumphant. The tower's inhabitants, once fearsome and imposing, were now reduced to mere obstacles in his path. As he cleared each floor, Daniel couldn't help but marvel at the stark contrast between these tower monsters and the formidable creatures that roamed the perilous danger zones. In comparison, these adversaries seemed almost cute, a welcome respite in his unrelenting journey. Through his unwavering mastery of light manipulation and the overwhelming might of his shadow soldiers, Daniel carved a path of triumph and domination through the tower's challenges, inching closer to his ultimate goal with each hard-fought victory. I guess it's time for me to return back. As it was getting late, he decided to return before exiting the tower and teleported back to Earth. Moreover, he kinda missed the touch of his mom. Fortunately, due to the adaptable clothing, it wasn't stained by the monster's blood. Daniel checked his clothing in the mirror of his bedroom and he became satisfied by it. I wonder what's mother doing right now? Curious about his mother's time, Daniel began searching for his mother, and this time, he knew where she was. It was none other than her office, which was located in the headquarters of the organization. Normally, he could ask the driver assigned by his mother to attend to his needs of traveling. However, Daniel wasn't used to the custom of someone attending to him, whether it was now or in the future. Hence, he walked and traveled to the destination of the headquarters for what seemed to be a huge tall building with a wide spread of the organization's name. Is this the place? It's kind of my first time since I never entered the building since I didn't bother in the future. He entered the building and was stunned by how spacious and wide the interior was. Of course, in modern Fantasia, the technologies inside of buildings were far superior, but for Earth, it was impressive how technology was implemented inside this building. For example, holographic skins projecting clear images or video or robotic cleaners. It was simply fascinating to witness, but he had other goals. I forgot to bring my cell phone along. This would be a bit troublesome, but I have no choice but to talk with the nearby receptionist, Daniel muttered to himself, realizing he needed assistance. Scratching his cheek, he approached the receptionist with a hesitant smile. Hi, and welcome to the headquarters of the organization. What can I do for you, young man? The woman greeted him with a polite demeanor. I'm here to visit Layla Bell, if you may. Daniel requested. The woman's expression momentarily shifted, a hint of surprise and uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Meeting the leader of the organization wasn't a common occurrence for regular residents. Maintaining her professionalism, she continued, I see, you wish to meet the leader, right? Do you have any booking of conference or something like that? She began typing on her keyboard, checking for any scheduled meetings. No, I didn't, Daniel admitted awkwardly, sensing the situation becoming more complicated. Alright, no worries. Since you never made any bookings, do you perhaps have a recommendation from a person of high authority or a letter? She inquired further, her tone slightly skeptical. Nope, not any of them, Daniel replied, his gaze shifting away as he felt a growing sense of discomfort. Alright, no bookings or recommendations, then how am I supposed to approve your request? Or did you just come here to cause trouble? You do know what happens to the ones who purposely cause trouble. The receptionist's frown deepened as she emphasized the consequences. Daniel tried to clarify, well, I'm not here to cause any trouble. I'm here just to meet my mother. He revealed his identity, a fact that seemed to surprise many of the residents nearby who overheard. Ha! Oh, so now you think you can just be the son of our leader that easily? Might as well I call myself the daughter of the leader, do you think anyone will believe that? The receptionist's voice raised a notch, drawing attention from those around them. As nearby residents and other receptionists turned their gaze toward Daniel, curiosity and intrigue filled the air. The commotion had sparked interest, and whispers spread through the area as they wondered about the unfolding situation. What am I going to do with her? Daniel wondered, his mind racing for a way to escape the turmoil that had erupted. Maybe I should have relied on the driver, he mused, regretting not taking the safer route by depending on the driver's assistance. But dwelling on what ifs wouldn't help his current situation. Excuse me, Ms. Blue, but what's going on with the commotion here? Don't you know how to treat the residents courteously? A voice suddenly intervened, drawing Daniel's attention. A man had approached the receptionist from behind, adjusting his spectacles as he spoke. It was a face Daniel recognized, someone who had been a pillar of support and guidance before he returned to the past. Tess, one of the branch leaders, had stepped in to address the situation. The memories of the kindness and mentorship he had received from Tess and the other branch leaders flooded back to Daniel. Their care and guidance after his mother's passing left an indelible mark on him. Mdmr, Tess. N.N.O., I'm here just trying to inquire from this strange boy that wishes to seek an audience with our leader, the receptionist stammered, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a high-ranking figure. Seek an audience. With Layla. I wonder who would. Tess began to say, his gaze turning toward Daniel. His eyes widened briefly before he composed himself, adjusting his glasses with a thoughtful expression. Tess took control of the situation with his characteristic calm demeanor. My apologies for any confusion, young man. Ms. Blue, please allow me to handle this matter.